pleasure of being joined by Grenada's former Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Michael Baptiste. He also served as leader of the opposition. He was also the Member of Parliament for the St. Andrews Southeast constituency. Southwest constituency. I stand corrected. You are correct. It was the Southwest constituency. You served as the candidate for the Grenada United Labour Party in 1995. As you also served for the New National Party candidate in 1999. And then I believe, did you serve as the GULP candidate during that 2003 elections?
Yes. Yes.
So you were part of that coalition, and was that with the GULP as well?
It was straight GULP, no collision.
No, straight GULP.
I didn't lose the seat.
Okay.
The seat was stolen from me.
Okay.
I mean, I believe I am the most prosecuted politician in Grenada in recent times. 11 charges were filed against me on the eve of elections, of which 7 were criminal charges.
Right.
Of course, none of these charges even reached downstairs the magistrate court. Right? So it was all thrown out. It was deemed frivolous. A magistrate lost her job, Miss Patricia Mark. The Prime Minister, Dr. Mitchell, tried to get Patricia Mark to come to Grenville to send my case in the High Court. Patricia Mark refused. She said, well, that's not her district. And moreover, if there's evidence against Baptiste, the case would reach the High Court.
Okay.
He asked her to retire. So she filed a matter in the High Court on the grounds that she was forced out of the magistracy because she refused to interfere with due process.
I see. Okay, Mr. Baptiste, yourself and Mr. Clement, who is the current leader of the opposition, you guys would have crossed the floor under very similar circumstances. There was a 15-seat configuration. As a matter of fact, I would say the difference between yourself and Mr. Clement is that you actually had a ministerial portfolio, which was the Ministry of Agriculture.
Right.
Can you reflect on that particular historical distinction? Because I believe you, Mr. Clement, share that unique characteristic as Grenadian politicians.
Well, similar but quite different. I was fired.
Okay.
As Minister of Agriculture, I was fired. There was a reshuffle, then I was demoted, and then I was fired because I made some statements in Parliament relating to the release of Phyllis Cord. So my appointment was revoked. In the case of Tobias Clement, his appointment could not be revoked because he never had a job. In other words, he was not working, he was not in government. He was a backbencher, and there's nothing to revoke. So that's the difference between me and him. I spoke out fearlessly because I was not concerned about losing a salary or losing the portfolio. I felt that the releasing of this code and lying to the Grenadian people, I thought I couldn't let that slide. That meant a lot to me. Of course, you know, I came from the Grenada United Labour Party, and these guys had overthrown the government. So I couldn't stand by and allow Dr. Mitchell to lie to the Grenadian people on such an important matter. So that's where we broke.
How would you rate his stewardship of the office of leader of the opposition? Obviously, he is still very new to the position, but you were also in that position. So if you were to pick up the phone and call him, what pieces of advice would you give to him? And how would you rate his transition and his stewardship of that?
That would be very, very difficult for me to do because Mr. Clement had said publicly in the Parliament that Dr. Mitchell is his hero. And it would be difficult for me to give someone advice as to how they oppose their hero. Because I believe that the sentimental feeling still exists between Mr. Clement and the NNP. I haven't heard him raise any substantial issues yet that would have me feeling comfortable that the people's business would be safeguarded under him. He raised some issues, but not necessarily of that great public interest. As a matter of fact, in his first appearance on GBN, I heard he made a statement. He said, no salary increase. He said no minister's salary increased under the NNP, and that it was under George Brizan that ministers had their last salary increase. And he repeated a second time on GBN. And I sent him a text that said, you must refrain from making those statements because that is not accurate. The NNP raised salaries in 2001, and again somewhere after Ivan, they raised the salary. I think it was between 2006, 2007, somewhere about there. They raised the salary. He have to start addressing the issues affecting the people. Seriously. I wish he would understand the problems the country is in, problems in terms of the collapse of the tourism sector because of the pandemic, the challenges that COVID-19 has brought about with it is not just a health crisis, but an economic crisis as well. Grenada's economy over the years have been built on tourism. The CBI selling passports, giving concessions to people to build hotels, guaranteeing loans for fly-by-night investors and so on. As it stands now, as we could see, there's not a tourist boat in the cruise ship terminal. All the planes are in the hangars. Some of them are going out of business. The hotels are empty. So it shows clearly that the points I was trying to drive home from 95 when I entered into the parliament was the resurrection of the rural economy.
And let us get into that, Mr. Baptiste, because there is a WhatsApp voice note that has been circulating. I believe you actually recorded that. But in that voice note, you called for there to be a stimulus package for poultry farmers and fishermen in rural Grenada. Can you articulate how the government can actually help these sectors? Because the Prime Minister did make some suggestions in his address, which you forcefully rebutted. But I want to get from you a sense of how we can actually take step-by-step prescriptive measures to address what you deem to be a deficiency in poultry and in the fishing sectors.
Well, the Prime Minister sees two Grenada. A Grenada which comprises St. George's only, where 95% of the nation's resources are being spent. And he sees the rural areas where he offers pittance. Now, in listening to the Prime Minister's address, he set aside, he said, $20 million in a stimulus package for the hotel industry. And he mentioned other things in the other goodies in the development bank, which total about $30 million for the tourism sector. Support for payroll, support for other matters. A few days ago, the Minister of Agriculture announced a stimulus package for farmers. And here's what in it. $5 million, she claimed. Of the $5 million, $2 million are loans to the GCNE fund. Here's the difference. He mentioned travel agents, bars, hotels, restaurants. Of course, he's talking about St. George's. And here he is, $5 million. And of the $5 million, $2 million are loans. So here you have the imbalance. And here you have the prejudice, the established prejudice of Dr. Mitchell.
Do you think it's a question of prejudice, or do you think it comes down to just issues with allocation of economic resources? I mean, currently,
no.
The government, the ruling party in Grenada, they have all 14 seats in the parliament. Certainly, it can't be only prejudice.
We can talk about the seats.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, the makeup of NNP modus operandi is not about development. It's about securing political power. And that's quite easy to do. A drunken man would catch at a straw. We have a situation where they control the tenders board. They control the cash program. They manipulate the school book program where they dissolve the school book program that the NDC had put in place. They dismantle that. And they are now given books and uniforms in terms of vouchers from the party office. They are given food vouchers. They are given monies for buses. They are giving you houses that the Chinese build to their supporters. So clearly, the government have controlled every aspect of government. They even gone into the churches now. We have a minister responsible for churches, where the churches are getting an allocation now for the first time ever. So every sector of the society, Dr. Mitchell tried to control it. And he has done, and he's doing the same thing now in agriculture. Here's what he did. Here's what the stimulus package entailed. 500 homes would be given seeds and a cutlass. Well, tools, but I assume it's a cutlass. These 500 homes would be selected by the politicians. That's how they operate. Whether it is giving out contracts for the cash programs, the 100 feet roads, all of that are controlled by the New National Party. So in doing so, they have manipulated the system to the point where people feel compelled to support Dr. Mitchell because they feel that the little pittance that he's handing to them is better than they not getting nothing at all.
Thank you for that anecdote. Now back to the question that I posed initially. In the voice note, you wanted there to be a more robust stimulus package. So I'm assuming that you're not satisfied with the stimulus package that was given to agriculture.
Not at all. And let me elaborate on that. The rural economy have collapsed. Agriculture have collapsed. Banana is down. The poultry just merely surviving. The GCNA, Nutmeg Association, prior to Ivan, we had 20 nutmeg pool or receiving stations, whichever you want to call them. After Ivan, we're down to 7. We have reduced, there has been a significant reduction of nutmeg production as a result of Hurricane Ivan and Emily. After Ivan, Minister Gregory Bowen was Minister of Agriculture. The government spent $15 million cutting down fallen trees with no plans at all for replanting. That $15 million that was not spent to develop agriculture. It was spent in giving the supporters, playing the politics as usual. Now, the poultry industry, fishing industry, they are two shining lights in the agriculture sector. The poultry industry, if we can reduce on the $60 million that we imported into the country and get that $60 million to circulate in the rural economy, we can have an immediate start. And how we do it? By an injection of serious capital. We need to mobilize homeowners. We need to assist homeowners with materials to build for our runs. We need to set up processing facilities, a facility. We need to set up a feed mill. And that feed mill could be made up of locally grown agricultural products, corn, bukusu peas, coconut, and so on. In so doing, we will get the farmers to grow. In other words, the poultry industry, poultry production must be inversely proportional to that of the food import bill. By that I mean, when poultry production rise, the food import bill drops. And that should be our goal in agriculture. Our goal in agriculture is to look at the huge food import bill and look at all the things that we could grow locally. And God forbid, there's a whole lot of things that we could grow locally. We have two bottling companies in Grenada, Coca-Cola and Carib. We have never engaged them to the point where they could make a local ginger ale, allowing farmers to grow ginger. We have not pushed them to do sorrel. We have not pushed them to do a fruit juice. No soursop juice. We have not pushed them to do anything. Instead, we sit back and we allow Coca-Cola to bring in the ginseng, the thing. Our grapefruit or citrus is not in the thing. So we have an abundance of fruits and vegetables that we could turn to agro-processing, that we could cut down on the imports. And not just cut down on the imports, but to circulate monies in the rural communities that would put bread on the rural table. I'm staying with poultry. It is a very simple process. We do not have to look for a ready market for the poultry. $60 million is leaving the country. The government tried setting up a processing poultry farm in Victoria. Of course, they spent $18 million, and that didn't work out. We do not want to go and spend another $18 million in a useless exercise. We could build small hatcheries around the country. Organize the people to start growing poultry in the backyard, in their homes, in their lands, wherever. If we could get each homeowner to grow 1,200 birds per year, at 1,200 birds times 5 pounds, you do the maths, you would see we have 60,000 pounds of meat right there. Yeah? We could do so immediately. And if we could get 400 homeowners to start growing birds in a cooperative, like we did with the GCNA, where they grow the birds, they bring it to the processing facility, they collect a check, they collect new chicks, and they go about their merry way, and everybody will eat a food, and we cut down on the huge import bill, and we could get that money to concentrate on social programs and other things that is necessary for development growth.
You also mentioned in that voice note that you had difficulty with a lot of the loan guarantees that the government would be offering foreign investors should they decide to invest in Grenada. Do you think that loan guarantees should not be offered to foreign investors? If not, how then would you propose that Grenada attracts foreign investors in a manner that would also protect the public purse?
Well, first of all, I mentioned a little earlier that the GCNA, which is almost bankrupt at the time, the government is giving them a loan, which they're required to pay back. The government allow a foreign investor to sell passports to the tune of $52 million and disappeared with $52 million. Let's be reasonable. We spent $18 million in St. Mark's in a losing exercise. We spent $52 million. We didn't spend it. We raised $52 million and we put it in the hands of a foreigner. He says he's going to do shrimp farm. Now, if we combine the 52 and the 18, we get about 70 million, right? That's $70 million that the new National Party, that Dr. Mitchell, put in the hands of foreigners and disappeared with $70 million. I'm talking about in these two instances alone. We may go into the others later on. If we took that $70 million and we put it in agriculture, we spend $5 million in bananas to resuscitate the banana industry. We put a $10 million in poultry. We put a $5 million in fisheries because we have to combine poultry and fishing. Because of the protein contents, we would need the fish waste, the guts, the skill, and we would need the fishermen to bring in more marine resources. So in a way, we have to help them to improve on the catch. We have to get them to have facilities, storage facilities, and so on and so forth. Just figure in your mind how good the rural economy would be looking at the moment if the $70 million that the Mitchell allowed squandered by foreigners, if we had the opportunity to put that $70 million in the rural economy, Grenada would be set for the next 25, 30 years. Now, these monies that we could put in agriculture is not a losing cost. When the Grenada United Labour Party under Sir Eric Gary was in office, agriculture export duty was 20%. And no one said a word. You know why? The GCNA was exporting tons and tons of nutmeg. Cocoa was exporting tons and tons of nutmeg. Bananas were exporting tons. We had coconut exporting tons and tons of copra. We had limes we were exporting. So agriculture export duty paid the salaries for civil servants. So whatever you spend in agriculture, it would come back. It would cut down on the crash program that the government spend every year, millions of dollars paying people to cut by the side of the road. Take the people off the road. Do like I did when I was Minister of Agriculture. Establish a labor subsidy program where you take the people from the road and you put them to work on the farms. Help them, help the farmers. In other words, you're creating an Imani workforce, but you're doing so in agriculture. We must involve them. We must organize ecotourism. and we tie in the herbal garden with it. Jamaica experienced 10-15% more tourism, not because they're going to watch sea, water, and sand, but because they're going to get weed and smoke. You can't stop people's lifestyle. Grenada must capitalize on that. St. Vincent is doing it. Grenada must capitalize on it. The time has come where we must, and I say must, decriminalize marijuana, give our young people some hope, allow them to plant. We must do it in a structured way, whether we give licenses, we do it in a controlled way, just like we do with rum. Rum is not produced in a helter-skelter way. We import cocaine into Grenada in terms of medicine for painkillers and whatnot. We have a whole list of dangerous drugs that we bring into Grenada. It's controlled. I couldn't go to the pharmacy and write myself a prescription for certain drugs. I need a prescription from the doctor. So why are we shying away from that? You see, once we make this thing attractive, we open up the whole agriculture sector, ecotourism, our herbs. We have a lot of herbs, the shadow benny, the kojiroot, the neem, the zerapik, the dandelion. We incorporate all of that into this herbal gardens around rural Grenada, and we have ecotourism, because the tourism dollar right now is not reaching rural Grenada. But if we set up the herbal garden and we decriminalize marijuana, you're going to see how much white people we're going to get going up in the mountain in the herbal gardens, sit there and leave some Yankee dollars in some US dollars in rural Grenada, and you will see things turning around. And young people will even sleep up in the mountains. They'll go up there because there's money to be made. But please don't ask young people to go back in the lands and plant nutmeg, a 7-year crop, or cocoa, a 4-year crop, and sit and believe that you could get agriculture to come back that way.
Mr. Baptiste, thank you so very much for appearing on the Bubb Report Sunday edition. I do look forward to bringing you back on another occasion to discuss agriculture, but also to discuss the issue of marijuana decriminalization, which also has become a trending and hot topic in Grenada. That is something that we really need to discuss. As a matter of fact, I think we need more than 1 hour to flesh out these issues of agriculture.
Well, agriculture need at least 2 hours. So when you have time, when you're going to